The poet now carries out a brilliant balancing act. The drums overwhelm the guns. The problem is not with the guns, but with the drums of war. The poet refuses to blame any one side. He says that everyone has to share the blame. As I said, he carries out a balancing act. And he says, we fall, all casualties of the war. According to the poet, the fall is not of one side, not of one group, certainly not of one individual, but of everyone. We fall, and we have all become casualties of the war. The fundamental problem is that we are unable to understand one another. We refuse to listen to one another. We refuse to look at one another. When we see a crowd, we see not a set of human beings, but just a crowd. It is this misunderstanding. It is this lack of communication. It is this breach in interaction. It is this stoppage of interconnectivity that is responsible for the colossal tragedy that is the Civil War. The poet says that before the war began, we were human beings. Now we have become characters, like the characters in a novel or the characters in a film. Things have changed so dramatically that we have ceased to be real human beings in flesh and blood, and become mere characters. Those who decided to remain at home, those who chose to remain in Nigeria, now find their lives unsettled, unsettled by taxes and rumors and looters. The poet's rich sense of humor is revealed here. He brings together in a set three very unlikely bedfellows, taxes and rumors and looters. Of these, the most tangible is the third, the looters, and the least tangible is the second, the rumors. Whatever be the case, all three together, taxes, rumors, looters, have together succeeded in unsettling the lives of those who chose to remain in their homeland, those who chose to remain in Nigeria. Fearful every day the owners may return. As I said, the Nigerian Civil War resulted in massive displacement. Some 500,000 persons were displaced. And those who abandoned their houses, the houses came to be occupied by other people. Frequently, Biafrans were forced to flee, and Biafran property was handed over to non-Biafrans. But the legality of it was not, to say the least, perfect. And those who lived in those houses, those who enjoyed such property, were fearful every day that the owners may return. We are all casualties. That is the declaration of the poet. And I think that can be seen as the thematic crux of the poem. Just as the poet tries to universalize the blame for the catastrophe that is the Nigerian Civil War, he also tries to universalize the applicability of the word casualty. We are all casualties. The fact is that everyone in Nigeria has become a casualty. The poet now brings in kwashiorkor, that strange disease discovered by Cicely Williams, the Jamaican doctor. It is a camp follower. A camp follower is a civilian follower attached to a military camp. It is a camp follower of not just our war. It's a camp follower of so many other things, of our political setup, of our society, of our economics. Kawashi Orker is a disease which afflicts children. It is severe protein malnutrition, severe protein deficiency, which devastates the lives of children. The poet very deliberately brings in Kawashi Orker because he wants to suggest that the Civil War is like Kawashi Orker, that strange disease which afflicts generation after generation of children, that strange disease which refuses to go away, that strange disease which is almost peculiarly African, that strange disease which has sometimes become the trademark disease of Africa. War is a kind of Kawashi Orker, a curse which afflicts not just the entire society, not just the entire generation, but which continues to afflict generation after generation of children. The subtext is that the long term impact of the terrible Nigerian civil war are really long term. They will have to be endured for centuries. They will have to be suffered by generations. The Casualties is a free verse poem. However, it is somewhat traditional. It is a somewhat traditional free verse poem because the poet chooses to capitalize the opening letter of the opening word of every line. There is no regular rhyme scheme. The poet does not use the metered line. The lines are of uneven length. And I think that the play between the rather long lines and the rather short lines provide the poem with much of its stylistic strength. The imagery is sharp. Some images from the poem make an indelible impression on the mind of the reader. They include the image of the fortress with falling walls, the image of diplomats enjoying their cigars, their pipes, their cigarettes in the smoking room, or as the poet puts it, the smoke room. The image of the wandering minstrels. And finally, the image of Kawashi Orker. The poet's passionate love for his land burns through the poem. However, this love is not directly expressed. The reader is allowed to know of it from what the poet says about the state of his motherland. The poet has a rich sense of humor, and this is revealed by his working out the strange combination, the funny combination of three things which are very different from one another: taxes and rumors and looters, all of which join together to unsettle the lives of those who have chosen to remain in their land. The poet's profound originality is revealed in the image of the funeral fire or the funeral pile eating up the forest And through this very original, very striking image, the poet works out a connection between human tragedy and ecological disaster. The poet makes effective use of figures of speech like repetition and alliteration. For example, the words the casualties are, the three words the casualties are. The three words are repeated over and over again in the poem. They provide the poem with a powerful unity. They impact the mind of the reader like an incantation. Similarly, the poet makes use of alliteration when he speaks of persons or property. Thus, a close stylistic analysis of the casualties makes it clear that John Pepper Clark Becky Derrimo is a highly accomplished poet. If you are asked to write on the stylistic aspects of the casualties, you must certainly speak about the title of the poem at some length. I have already discussed the title of the poem in an earlier class. You must point out that the title of the poem taps effectively the enormous semantic resources of the word casualty, and that it attempts to expand the semantic ambit of the word casualty. I would like to sign off by inviting you to bring into conjunction the present poem, The Casualties of John Pepper Clark Becky Derrimo, with another brilliant work which has the Biafran War as its setting, the 2006 novel Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.